Hi there, it's Melitta from TBA Law. I'm the conveyancer here, and it's time for another Facebook Live post from me. During this, if you've got any questions about any conveyancing at all, pop them up on the screen and I'll do my best to answer them for you. So, with the end of the financial year often brings a lot of changes to conveyancing. This year there hasn't been too many, so I'm going to discuss a few different things that have changed and go over the first homeowner grant concessions and what you're eligible for, spouse and partner exemptions with stamp duty, and their regional, commercial and industrial concession with stamp duty, and also discuss what PEXA is. So this year, so previously there had been, there is in a contract what's called a sunset clause. This sunset clause is in contracts that are for unregistered plans. So it might be a block of land, it could be a house and land package. And a sunset clause is basically a special condition which states that if the plan is not registered within a period of time, it's usually about 18 months, then either party can end the contract with a full refund of the deposit going to the purchasers. Let me just adjust this screen. So previously it didn't really protect the purchasers very well, and there was a lot of concern with developers deliberately postponing construction works or registrations of the plan in order to end the contract and resell the property at a higher price. Recently, the Victorian government passed some legislation changes, which certainly protects the purchaser a lot more. Basically, sorry, you'll have to bear with me. I'm going to look at some notes occasionally throughout this. So basically, now a developer can only activate the sunset clause if they have written agreement from the purchaser or issued by a Supreme Court. So they would have to prove that they had legitimate reasons in not being able to meet the requirements for their construction, whether it be registering the plan or other. So that certainly removes that concerns that they had about, sorry, I just had a visitor. That certainly removes any concerns that the purchasers had previously in relation to, developers unlawfully ending the contract. So that's been a great legislation change recently. If you've got any questions about that anytime, please ask me and I'm happy to go over that with you. All right, so another change that's recent with the State Revenue Office in relation to stamp duty on regional, commercial and regional industrial properties it's coming into effect from the 1st of July 2019. And basically, if you're purchasing it must be regional, and it must be either a commercial or industrial or extractive industries property, or you're purchasing something that you are then converting to use for those purposes, you may be entitled to a stamp duty concession. It's about a 10% deduction on your stamp duty, and certainly stamp duty is not cheap, so it can make a big difference to how much you're actually paying for that. Again, it must be regional, so that's certainly something to keep in mind if you're purchasing a commercial or industrial property. All right, I'm also wanted to discuss the spouse and partner exemption. So transfers between spouses and partners were exempt from duty, regardless of the type of property. So a lot of people will transfer investment properties from two people into one person's name. It may be for tax reasons, I'm not sure on that, but that is these days you only are exempt from stamp duty if it is on your current residential property. So it must be your principal place of residence, and if you're transferring between spouses or partners on your current residential property, then you will get you will be exempt from stamp duty rather. Any other properties outside of that, you're no longer exempt, unfortunately. Again, that was brought in 1st of July 2017, but it's something a lot of people still haven't been fully aware of, which is why we thought we'd mention it. Again, any questions, please feel free to write it up or put it on the screen and I'll answer for you. All right, so I was just going to run over the first homeowner grants and concessions available. There are so many, I will need to refer to my paperwork just so that I don't get confused. All right, so if you are buying or building a home valued up to $750,000, you may be eligible for a first homeowners grant. Both, if there's more than one party buying the property, both parties, it must be their first home, they must be living in that property. Regional Victoria, it's a $20,000 grant. Metropolitan, it's $10,000. The home, if you're not building, you may still be eligible for the grant if it's your first home, but the property must be less than 5 years old for you to be eligible. All right, there are also some other exemptions and concessions as a first home buyer that you may be eligible for if you're not building your home and eligible for the grant. So if you're buying your first home, it's going to be your principal place of residence, which means you'll be living in the property from settlement or within 12 months of settlement, and the property is valued up to $600,000. You may be eligible for a concession as your principal place of residence, but you also may be eligible for a reduced stamp duty or in some cases exempt stamp duty. Again, that's something to discuss with your conveyancer or solicitor at the time. Most conveyancers will ask you that question on your initial meeting or contact with them when you first buy. So it certainly can be a significant reduction. Okay, also if you buy off the plan, you may be also eligible for some reductions as well. But again, that's sorts of things that the conveyancer will go over with you in your initial instructions with them. Again, you get a concession. It may not be your first home, but if it's going to be your principal place of residence, you will get a concession on your stamp duty, roughly around about $3,000. So it can be quite significant. And what else is there? I think, just with applying for the first homeowners grant, in the majority of cases, your bank will apply for this application for you. It's really important that you make sure that they are doing this, particularly if you're relying on those funds for the settlement. They need to process this application at the start because you don't want any delays or the money not to come through in time for settlement and then you have an issue. Okay, sorry, I just made some notes last night because I didn't want to forget anything. You've also got a young farmers concession as well. So for farmland valued at less than $600,000, you may be eligible for a concession on the first $300,000 of that. Sorry, I don't do the farming one very often, so I'm just making sure I give you the correct information. Yeah, so I believe if you're under 35 years old and it's farming land and you're going to be using the land for farming purposes, you may be eligible for a concession. So that's certainly worth bringing up to your conveyancer or solicitor to let you know whether or not you're eligible for that. Are there any questions at all? Because I'm happy to answer anything. It doesn't have to be about specifically what I'm talking about. No. Okay. So I also wanted to discuss PEXA. You may have heard your conveyancer or solicitor talking about PEXA. Have no idea what it's about. So the last couple of years, conveyancing in Victoria, and I believe it is going national, but conveyancing in Victoria is now done online. PEXA is the online settlement workspace where your conveyancer or solicitors attend to effect settlement. So basically we create what we call a workspace. We invite all parties, so that will be banks, the other buyer or purchaser's representative, and anyone else that may be associated with the transaction, all get invited into their workspace, and then we effect settlement there. There are some huge benefits with PEXA. For us, it alleviates hundreds of phone calls, but it just makes it a little bit easier in communicating with people. So we're not sitting on hold to banks. We can communicate with banks directly through this system, which is great. It also transfers money directly into people's accounts, generally within a couple of hours of settlement. I spoke to PEXA about this some time ago, and they said that it's ultimately up to each bank, and it can take 24 hours, but in most instances, we find that it's usually done within a few hours of settlement. So that's great. Gone are the days of bank checks, waiting 3 days for clearance times, and because even a bank check has a 3-day clearance time. So it's a much more quicker and convenient system for everybody to use. There are fees associated with PEXA, which your conveyancer or solicitor will generally charge to you. Those fees recently went up by a couple of dollars on the 1st of July, and it is now $114.07 for a settlement. And depending on the transaction, there are some different fees. So lodging a caveat is $16. What else is there? A discharge of mortgage is $20.68. A priority notice is $9.13. So there are some fees. They're not huge, but it is good to know because these costs are generally passed on to the client. But again, in Victoria, it's compulsory to do settlements through PEXA. There is the odd exemption in that sometimes there are complex matters, and they then have to be paper. But again, as of the 1st of August, it's all going online. So we've got no choice. It has to be done electronically. And that's PEXA. Any questions with PEXA? No? Okay. So it's been nice talking to you all today. Hope you have a lovely day, and any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm happy to answer you anytime. Okay, I think I've come to the end of it. Have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.